Hi, all of you that are just tuning in. Just gonna give a couple minutes for people to hop on, and then we will start. Good morning, everybody. My name is Shelby, if you aren't familiar. It is a little past 10, so I'm just going to start, and people can trickle in as we get going here. So I work here at the Concord Audubon McLane Center. I'm the education coordinator here. And our mission through New Hampshire Audubon is to protect New Hampshire's environment for wildlife and for people. And we do that through lots of different branches of our organization. My specialty being education, and our organization as a whole has several different branches, including sanctuary management, conservation of different types of species, policy, membership and development, but education is kind of what we're going to focus on today. And we are going to see our barred owls today. So they're one of our last birds that we have here. We are running out of birds here at McLane, so these are going to be the last birds that unfortunately we will feature. They are two special birds, which we'll see in a little bit. But I just kind of wanted to give you an overview of, kind of what we're going to go over and where we're going to go from here. So I will take you guys down to the enclosure. Let's see. I'm going to walk down. Just bear with me here for a minute. Oh no. You all hopefully can see me. Somebody give me a thumbs up if you can see me. I just traveled out back where the connection maybe isn't so good. So, oh my goodness. Okay, good. You can all still see me. Awesome. So here, we prep all of our food and we have all of our birds. If you've been following along, you've maybe seen this before, but this is the back of our enclosures right now. And we're going to go in and see our barred owls. They are two of our, we call them our ambassador birds, and they are special. So let's go ahead and see them. Okay, so I'm going to flip you around here in a minute, but just to give you a little background, we have two barred owls that live here at our center. One of them likes to hang out way up top. So you guys, I'll get you as close as we can get. Our male, who is typically down near the bottom, he is a little bit shy, I guess, if you will, so he might fly away from us, but we'll try to respect his space as much as we can, so we can see him as best as we can. So I'm going to spin you around so you guys can see it. So this is our male barred owl, and up here we have our female barred owl. This is like her favorite place to hang out. It's probably a combination of the sun and being able to look out from up there, but she really likes hanging up there. And then our male down here, this kind of seems to be his favorite spot where he can kind of look out at the visitors that are coming and still be, you know, able to have access to his food and everything, and his water dish down here. So we think that he likes to hang out down here for that reason. So our male barred owl, which is this one right here, and then our female is up top. Our male has been here since 1999. He was found in Claremont, New Hampshire with 2 broken wings. So he is not a flighted bird. He doesn't fly at all. We don't encourage him to fly. They have really low perches here, where they can hop around to and explore. He is here basically for those reasons. His wings never healed correctly, so he can't return to the wild because he wouldn't be able to survive on his own, find his own food. Our female up here, she came here in 2011. She has a amputated right wing. She was found in Hopkinton with a injured wing and had to be amputated. So she too is a flightless bird, which is pretty funny if you think about the fact that she likes to hang out way up there. One of the things she does is she'll use her talons to climb up the screen and kind of hop over to the thing. And, you know, we try to make it as safe as possible for her to hang out up there as, you know, it is for her. So, let's see. What else can I tell you about these guys? So they both have been here. They live in the same enclosure together all the time. And they, we like to think that they, you know, get along pretty well. They have never shown signs that they were going to mate with each other. We don't encourage them to mate with each other. So we really don't worry about that, thankfully. So yeah, we don't have to worry about baby owls. And barred owls are actually one of the most common owls we have here in New Hampshire. They are the owls that you hear in the woods saying, "Who cooks for you?" So it sounds like hoo 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 hoo. And they are nocturnal, which means that they are sleeping during the day and awake at night. Here in captivity is a little bit different for these guys, just because they are, you know, we are here during the day and there's no place there. I mean, there is a couple places where they could hide, but not to kind of get out of the light of people. So they will, you know, sleep on and off during the day when there's no visitors or anything, or I'm not in here. But they are very active at night. We do have some security cameras, which we can spot with these guys on the cameras, and they are like up all night calling, which is really cool to hear. They're just kind of moving around. Maybe they'll save their food to eat for later in the day. So they are definitely a nocturnal bird. So they're awake at night and kind of napping during the day, I guess you could say. If anybody, I forgot to mention this, if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop it in the comments. I'm seeing lots of good mornings and hellos. So excited that you guys are here. Let's see, what can I tell you about these guys? So our barred owls are, like I said, one of the most common owls that we have here in New Hampshire. And they are, sorry about that, they are a bird that we see quite often. A lot of people are reporting these guys being seen both near their houses and by the roads. And one of the reasons that they are out by the roads is because they are hunting for food. So these guys are carnivores, which means that they are, meat eaters. And they, kind of as we've talked about along the last few weeks, they have talons, which are, they're really sharp toes that they have that they use for catching their food. I'm going to kind of just pan to this guy. And then they have the really sharp hooked beaks that they use for ripping food apart. So they're hunting for things like mice and moles and voles and rats. Anything that kind of is a small mammal meat eater, or they are a meat eater. Let's see. Okay. Our class at JDB. Yes. So, I did want to give a shout out to, the class at JDB. They are watching, and tuning into our owl presentation today, and they were wondering what they eat and how we feed them. If you can hear that, that is our, red-tailed hawk next door making some sounds. Yes, so these guys want to know what they eat and how we feed them. So these guys are strictly meat eaters, like I said. So they're eating in captivity a combination of mice and rats and quail, which is just a smaller bird that would typically live on the ground. And it has lots of nutrients for these guys. And they we kind of ration it out, so they get a certain amount of food every day, so we can monitor their weight. So here in captivity, they get, a certain amount of food just because we want to know how much they weigh and how much food they're getting, so we can monitor basically their well-being, or their wellness, if you will. So these guys are getting about 60 to 70 grams of food in the wintertime. And then in the summertime, it comes down to between 40 and 60 grams of food. So if we're talking in terms of mice, that's roughly like 4 or 5 mice in the wintertime, and then kind of comes down to 3 to 4 mice in the summertime. So they are getting a significant amount of food during the winter, and then in the summertime it comes down because they're not burning as much fat as they typically would in the wintertime. So they need less food. And we feed them basically just by cut up their food, and then we bring it in, and we just they each have a special place. So this is the male where he eats, and the female kind of eats over here. So they each have their own special places, and we hope that they're both eating their own portioned food. With these guys, it's a little tough to tell because they live, together. And since the female is typically always up here, one of the cool things about the camera that we have is we can watch to see when she's coming down to get her food, and hoping, or basically ensuring that this guy isn't eating all of her food. So, let's see. Somebody says, do they live alone or do they have little owl communities? So in captivity, these two, they live together. In the wild, that's a good question if they're solitary or not. I don't believe they are. I think barred owls are, kind of have their own, they're either, this is a good question. I don't know if barred owls mate for life. But I think that they do. So, I would say that they're probably always hanging out with some other owl, whether it be a pair, or whether it be a fledgling, or another owl like that. Do they have personalities? Yes, they definitely have personalities. All of our birds here have some personality to them. We try to keep them as, wild as possible by treating them as wild birds, but they do have personalities. The male here is definitely, I would say, I don't want to call him grumpy because he's, a bird, and he's, I don't want to anthropomorphize him, but he definitely has an attitude sometimes. And our female up here, she is really sweet, but she can have an attitude when she wants. But I mean, she's a wild bird, so she definitely has those tendencies and is able to, you know, do that if she wants to. What is a barred owl's wingspan? So these guys, their wingspan is around 4 feet. It's not super huge. They're a kind of a soaring bird, so they're not a bird that's going to fly super fast. And as we know, they travel through the woods and things to get from their nest out to find food. So they need to kind of be agile flyers, but they tend to kind of soar through places. And this is, something that happens, unfortunately, with these guys getting hit by cars, because they do come down and forage along the sides of the road. So as they're kind of swooping down to get those mice and things on the side of the road, they could potentially get hit by cars. So, their wingspan is around 4-ish feet. One of the really, really cool things about these barred owls is that they have a third eyelid, or 3 eyelids, basically. So the way it works is, I'll spin it around so you can see it on me. The way it works is, so they have the bottom eyelid, just like we have, or kind of this skin here. They have the top eyelid, just like we have, that kind of closes, and when we blink, it goes up and down. And then they have a third eyelid, which comes over from the side. So the point of that third eyelid is basically for protection. And we might be able to get the male to do it if we get close enough. But for right now, I'll just explain it to you. So he has kind of it's like a bluish color eyelid, and they use it basically for protection, where if let's say they're flying and is something coming at them, or a branch or a tree, they can kind of cover that with the protective eyelid, and it will, protect their eyes so that they don't get injured or anything like that. And they can still see out of it. That's the really cool thing about it, is where they, can close it but still see out of it, and their eye is protected. And then they have that third eyelid that the first one that they open and close their eyes with. So yeah, let's see if we can get him to blink here and kind of catch it on camera. If you guys look really close, he is blinking there. Hope you guys can see that. So it is very, very quick. So he's, but he is doing it for you there. So you can see that third eyelid and how it comes across, which I think is really cool. Let's see. Somebody says like a cat. Yes, similar to a cat, where they can kind of close their eyes and still be protected, but still see out of it. Do they nest in trees, like making their own nest, or in trees? So these guys will make their own nests in trees. I don't know if they have like a special tree that they like better than others. I think just the northeast forest, any type of forest, honestly. So like we have barred owls in our woods here at McLane, and it's a mix of deciduous and coniferous and, maples and all kinds of different types of trees here. And I don't think they have a specific type of tree that they like to nest in specifically. Has there been any major changes in their wild population over the past few years? So these guys over the last few years have been kind of diminishing. Not diminishing, there are still plenty of them, but there are lots more getting hit by cars, unfortunately. So we know that we had a squirrel apocalypse where there was tons of squirrels a couple years ago, and they were, you would see them everywhere on the side of the roads. And these guys, that's what they eat. They eat predominantly squirrels, chipmunks, mice, things like that are going to kind of come down on the side of the roads and things. So they were getting hit more often. So our rehabbers were seeing more and more of these birds in their clinics and facilities. But I wouldn't say that their, population is super diminishing, just that there are, you know, more of them getting hit, unfortunately. But I think that has come down in the most recent years where, you know, since the crop has come down and there aren't as many squirrels and chipmunks surviving, so these guys aren't, you know, worrying about getting hit as much. Oh, where did the name barred owls come from? So they get their name because on the front of them, you can see these feathers here kind of look like bars. So they get their name because they look like they have those barred looks on the front of them. How can you tell the male from a female in the wild? That is a good question. So when I started first working here, I even struggled to tell these two apart. But, you know, the more I worked with them, the easier it got. But so there really is no way to tell just by looking at them in the wild, whether it's a male or a female. The difference really is only that the females tend to be a little bit bigger than the males, but unless you have two next to each other and it's like pretty noticeable, then it's really hard, you know, to tell the difference between a male and a female in the wild. In captivity, the only reason, or the reasons that I can tell, just being that she is a little bit bigger than our male here. She is, I would say, like to say more full. So she looks like she's kind of fluffier, and this guy is kind of a skinnier, not as fluffy look to him. But also, I could just be saying that, and that's just kind of my thoughts. And we've had volunteers and people come in and have to tell them by different ways. So that's just kind of my own opinion in the way that I can figure it out. Hi, Jackson. So glad that you guys are watching and tuning in. Let's see. What else can I tell you? Oh, so these guys have owl pellets, just like we have talked about with our barred owls, and we've talked a little bit about the castings with the other types of birds. So our hawks and our eagles, they produce a casting, and then our owls produce the pellet, which is a combination of fur or feathers and bones. So these guys produce something very similar. Let's see. I don't have any in their enclosure right now because I just cleaned it. So let's go back here. So we do save all of our pellets from our owls. And the reason for that being because we can have children dissect them, which is really cool, or adults. That's cool too. I think it's really fun to dissect them and try to figure out what they ate. It's really cool if you can find like a wild owl pellet and kind of try to dissect it and try to figure out what they ate. Here in captivity, we obviously know what they're eating, but like picking one up. So here's an owl pellet, and it is most likely from our barred owl, and they, let me see if I can pull this apart for you with one hand. So you can see a tiny bone, and lots of tiny little bones here that you can kind of sift through. Owl pellets are a really, really fun activity. You can actually find them online pretty cheap. We do sell them here at New Hampshire Audubon. If you guys are ever interested, since we do have a plethora of them, we're able to, since we get them every day, since our owls are producing a pellet every day. One of the things about that is that they are, one of the kind of cool things about a pellet is that it stops the owl from being able to eat more. So let's say that I go to feed our barred owls and they haven't produced their pellet yet. They're going to be less likely to work with me and want to come down and take the food because they're full. They don't have any room for food because their pellet is basically taking up all the space that they would normally fill their food with. So that is owl pellets. How old are the owls? And when the student is wondering if they're signs of bad luck. Ooh, I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard that. So I would say no. I don't believe that owls are a sign of bad luck. Maybe somebody here watching knows, but I don't think so. How how old are the owls? So the male has been here since 1999, and he could have been so many years before that, so it's kind of uncertain. And then our female has been here since 2011, so she's at least, let's see, 2008? No, what year are we in? 2020. 2020 and 2011, that would make her, wow, I'm really blanking on my math here today. Math off the top of my head is not my thing. So maybe somebody could do the math here and let us know, or let our students know that are watching. Let's see. What else do you guys want to know? Let's see. Let me see if I can get you a close-up of the male here. So they do this thing with their beaks where they actually click their beak, and it's kind of a sign maybe that they aren't super happy. They do it at me even when I have food, so I don't take it as a sign that they don't like me. They just, they don't like people up in their area. And these are wild birds. They were once living in the wild, and they now live in captivity, so humans really aren't their, their favorite thing to be around. But they know that they're getting food from us every day and being able to live here safely where they don't have to worry about predators or anything. So if you guys don't have any more questions, I'm going to go inside, and I wanted to just show you a couple close-ups of some of their features and things. So I have some barred owl talons that you guys can see up close, and some feathers, and their skull, which I think is really cool. So just travel back down the hall with me. How do you exercise them? So since these two birds are birds that have wing injuries, we really don't try to, make them fly or make them move around at all. They kind of get their exercise by just moving around on their own, which they do predominantly at night, because they are nocturnal birds like we were talking about. One last question. What is your presentation about next week? So I believe our last reptile, who we haven't seen yet, actually we have two. So I think it's going to be our box turtle. So if you've been following along and seeing all our turtles so far, you will get to tune into our box turtle. He is a funny little turtle, and see how he maybe is different than some of the other aquatic turtles that we've seen so far. So this is a barred owl talon. So you can see on the underside, it's kind of scaly, has these sharp nails that they use for grabbing food with. It's covered in feathers, so this helps them. They're a bird that's going to stay here in the wintertime, so they need kind of the warmth that is going to provide them in the wintertime. Let's see, so this is a barred owl wing, so you can see the size of it and how wide it is. The width helps them soar through the trees and things. So you can see this is just one. Let's see if I can compare it to my body. It's probably, my head and a little bit of my torso. So relatively big. And then, one of the cool things I didn't tell you about their feet. So their feet, they have this really cool feature. And it's called having zygodactyl feet, which means that they, if you can see their toes here, we have two in the back and two in the front. What owls can do is they can actually move one of their toes back and forth. So they can either have 3 in the front, 3 in the back, or 2 in the front and 2 in the back. So they can kind of arrange their toes back and forth to whatever, they need to arrange them for, like landing or catching something. So this is our barred owl skull. So you can see, if we look at this guy here, here's a barred owl, not alive. This is a mount. But you can see how big his head looks. And then we have the skull here and how much smaller it is compared to the actual head. So that is just basically telling you that there's a lot of feathers and things on the head that's going to kind of provide insulation and keep it warm. But the skull is really very small. And then you can see the beak here, how it has this hooked shape. It's really sharp along the edges here. And that is what allows them to be able to rip food apart. And I believe that is it. Let's see. I have dissected an owl pellet. Yes, if this is still Jackson, Jackson was able to dissect an owl pellet during one of our camps, which is really fun. And, as Jackson says, so we have one turtle, the wood turtle, who you guys, I think, saw a few weeks ago, since I have been not doing the Q&As. We have a wood turtle who does, he does bite shoes. So it won't be him, it will be our box turtle. So, okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed seeing our barred owls. I will be back next week with either one of our reptiles, so either a snake or a turtle, but most likely our box turtle, because he hasn't been featured yet. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day, can get outside and do some exploring of your neighborhood or your backyard. And if you are looking to support us in any way, you can go right to our website and donate any way that you can. So thank you to our class that tuned in today. I hope that you guys enjoyed your first viewing, and hopefully you guys will come back